Hey guys, welcome back to the basketball segment on the Pump Take Sports podcast. I'm here with Marco, and today we're gonna be talking about some big market or small market not free agents, trade candidates that are coming up with the trade deadline is quickly approaching. So we're just going to be talking about some players that might be on the move, and as well as some teams that might be interested in them. So Marco, is there anybody you wanted to start off with?
Yeah, man. So trade deadline is March 25th, which is in 11 days. And as the season is heating up, we're after the All-Star break, playoffs are coming soon. Teams are looking to make some big moves and add, contending teams are looking to make some big moves and add players to their teams so that they can, make those playoff pushes. And one of these players that is definitely going to be moved is Lamarcus Aldridge. The Spurs have already said he's gone. Greg Popovich said no hard feelings. We love Aldridge. We just think it's a mutually beneficial thing for Aldridge and the Spurs to part ways. So personally, I've heard some rumors. The Heat are looking for a power forward, along with a ton of other teams. And the Lakers are also looking for a power forward. And, those are the finals. That's the finals last year. So I think either of those teams would do great with adding a player like Lamarcus Aldridge who can stretch as well as grab those rebounds. Like, he's a vet, he brings a good presence to the floor. But yeah, what do you think, Lamarcus Aldridge, Kale?
Yeah, I feel like every guy that's being sort of talked about around the trade deadline this year is either like a big or just like a center or a forward.
Yeah.
It seems just like there's not really a need for guards among contending teams this year. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Lamarcus Aldridge is already gone. He's probably gonna, if he can't get traded, I don't know exactly what his contract is like, but if they can't find a trade partner for him, he's probably gonna get bought out in the coming weeks and just kind of sign with a contender for a really cheap deal. So yeah, teams like the Lakers, teams like the Heat would be a great addition, and a guy that's kind of in the same sort of realm to target for teams like that is Andre Drummond, who's been talked about a lot. Now, an issue with Drummond is that we have the running joke in our friend group that Drummond sucks in real life, but in a vacuum, Drummond does have some value as just like a traditional big. He's an excellent rim protector, great rebounder, but paying $30 million for a backup is a hard thing for teams to do in a trade. So the market for guys like that's going to be interesting because I think Drummond is an excellent target for teams that are in need of that position. Like the Lakers are another one that come to mind with the Marc Gasol experiment hasn't really worked. And with AD being injured, Harrell's kind of been forced into playing like a small ball center role in the starting lineup, which he isn't necessarily suited for. And it's not really a sustainable solution for a team that kind of immediately needs help at the position. So a guy like Drummond or Lamarcus Aldridge, it would allow the Lakers to play AD in his natural position at power forward by playing those guys at center and also moving Harrell back to the bench where he excels much more.
Yeah, man, for sure. The one thing about Drummond is I think he's on you were saying a 30 mil. I think it's like $33 million contract. He's not even in his last year. And
I think he is. I think he's.
Oh, you think he is?
2021. He's an unrestricted free agent.
Okay, I can't see the Cavs buying him out just because that's a lot of fucking money to pay to buy someone out.
You're already paying the cap. You're already paying for one more year.
Exactly. And then I can't see any team taking on that ginormous contract, especially these contending teams that don't really have they don't either have the cap space or they don't have if you're going to trade for Andre Drummond, you need to give up some decent pieces.
Yeah, just because of how much he's making.
Exactly. Just because of how much he's making and because he's a valuable asset. But in today's NBA, Drummond isn't as valuable of an asset as his stats project. And that's with us, that's why our friend group is talking about, he's a good player, but he doesn't actually add as much value as his stats say. Yes, he's a rebound monster and he'll get 16 rebounds a game or even 20. Yes, he'll put up 20 points a night. But other than that, he's not a great passer. He's an all right rim protector. I don't know if he's amazing, but I think he's good, but he can't really defend one-on-one. He can't space the floor at all.
Yeah.
He's a terrible shooter, not a great passer.
he's
And
he's very situational in how like
extremely.
in how a team can use him, because it's like he's very good at the couple things that he does, and it's like
Mhm.
it's kind of just like become just like a meme to just like make fun of Drummond and just like
Yeah,
say that
yeah.
he's shit in real life and that he's only
Yeah.
good in fantasy. But he does have strengths, but those strengths are very hard to work into like to a functioning team.
A modern team. And in the modern NBA, you don't want a player that can just play five. You want a Giannis that can play every single position.
Yeah.
If you're going to pay that, like $33 million, that's a lot, right? And if you're going to pay that money, you want to be able to find a player that's versatile or literally the best at something. Like, in my opinion, Rudy Gobert is another player that gets clowned on a lot, but Rudy Gobert provides much more value to a team than Andre Drummond, in my opinion, just because of how good he is defensively. Also, his decision making is better, and his pick and roll is better. And I think those things in today's modern NBA are more important.
A team that I think would be an interesting destination for Drummond that hasn't really been talked about a lot so far is the Hornets. And that's because the Hornets, like, so in this previous offseason when Harrell got signed to the Lakers, the Hornets actually had a bid in for him for, I believe, an equal amount of money, but Harrell just chose the Lakers. So the Hornets were already, like, before this season, trying to build up that position. And I think that they were honestly anticipating being able to sign Harrell in the offseason, because now their front court has been a little bit of a mess all year. Like they've been rotating like Cody Zeller, and they've started to start like PJ Washington in at like a small ball center kind of role. And it's not really worked out for them defensively. But that being said, the Hornets are in a unique situation for a team that's like been so bad in recent history that they're currently sitting in a playoff spot.
Yeah.
And I think
the other side, like their shooting guard, small forward, point guard position, it's looking fantastic with Rozier, Graham, Lonzo, whoever, like name them. They're great. They're playing so good. But yeah, as you're saying, like their center position is lacking.
Yeah, they don't really have they don't have any stability at that position. Like they were anticipating PJ Washington being able to be kind of like a hybrid center power forward, but the reality is, like 2 years into his career, that it's clear that his natural position is just power forward, and to get the best out of him, that's just where he needs to play.
Yeah.
Like you if they weren't like rotating in like Cody Zeller and Bismack Biyombo as their big men, like I think that they would be much, much better than they are. And Drummond would really just address like a very specific and immediate need for them. And I think that the Hornets have big incentive to do that, having been so bad in recent years. And now that they're in a position that they can kind of like break that sort of stink streak and get into the playoffs, I think that they would probably spend a little bit into the luxury tax on a 1-year Drummond rental just to have some team success this year.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think they do need a center. Like they obviously do need a center, but I think this year, it isn't the year for the Hornets. And I think to give up what they would need to give up to get a player like Drummond with that huge contract, just to match the money, it would be difficult for them to pull off. And I think it would be better for them to just wait like 1 year until these guys go on become free agents, so they can sign someone for a little cheaper and on their terms instead of on another team's term. But just Drummond in general to me is an interesting player, because it's like I think he's just right now he's overvalued, and no one really wants to pay that. But
like he's overvalued in terms of money, not like
his contract,
what people perceive him as.
Yeah, exactly. But and what people perceive him as, honestly, I think people are actually, I think that the NBA in general doesn't really perceive him to be the value that he's getting paid at all. I think there wouldn't be a team that wants to pay him above $30 million in the NBA. I don't think there's one team that would want to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Want to move on? Or you got more Drum Daddy talks?
I have just one more Drum Daddy, like kind of off the board team that's emerged recently. So just from osmosis of following just like fantasy communities and shit.
Yeah.
I've been seeing the Bulls being talked about as a potential Andre Drummond landing spot. And in a recent development, they moved Kobe White and Wendell Carter Jr. to the bench. So something is happening in Chicago.
Thad Young is starting at center.
Yeah, Thad Young is starting at center.
He's kind of snapping. I have him on my fantasy team. He's lit, but not Drum Daddy lit. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But if you're the Bulls, the Bulls are another team that, with the East being this close this year, they could feasibly make the playoffs for sure. There's those bottom seeds in the East. Not the bottom seeds. By bottom seeds, I mean the last playoff seeds.
The
middle
just
seeds.
A little bit below 500.
Yeah, they're all in the same race. They're within 1 to 3 games of each other. And I don't agree that the Bulls should not trust Wendell Carter Jr. to just start at center for them. But clearly moving him and Kobe White to the bench, it's the Bulls kind of are notorious for not really letting their young players take significant steps on their team. Yep. They kind of just they're not a team that I think, if I was running the team, that should be trying to get Drummond, but they're a team that I think, just because of their history and sort of what is now happening with the rotation, that they could make a push for Drummond. I think it would be dumb, but I think that they would possibly do it.
Yeah, and I think that in that scenario, the Cavs would be extremely happy to be trading with a team that has the Cavs are building a nice young core, and the Bulls have a couple young guys that, if they could even get one of their young guys for Drummond to unload that contract. I know it doesn't really work like that, but in a hypothetical scenario, I'm sure the Bulls would be happy to do it wrongly, and the Cavs would be happy to do it rightly.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there another guy that you wanted to talk about moving on from Drummond?
Yeah, we'll move on to another big center who, in my opinion, and not even my opinion, in everyone's opinion, and in the NBA's opinion, is much more valuable. An all-star, back-to-back all-star, Vucevic. I love Big Daddy Vooch. He is a fantastic player, and this year he is really showing it. He is better than last year, and last year he was amazing. And he's on the poo-poo-poo Magic. And just the Magic in general, I think, need to be discussed, but Vucevic needs to go. He needs to go. The Magic need to fucking pull the plug, and they need to get rid of their good players, in my opinion, because they're building they have a couple nice young players. They have Isaac, feel bad about his injury, but he'll be back. He'll be good. They have Fultz, who has had flashes of looking good, and I can see
Fultz looked amazing before he got hurt.
Yeah, exactly. And I completely forgot about his injury. Yeah, he looked great before he hurt.
Yeah,
and Cole Anthony has looked good too. Cole Anthony has flashes where he just looks like a fucking scoring machine. He is a natural scorer, and that's what he is. You have these young guys to build around, and then you have players that are currently in their prime or just reaching their prime, or at the end of their prime, at the beginning of their prime. Vooch, Fournier is kind of at the end of his prime, I think. And but he's a great role player. And Gordon, not Eric Gordon, Aaron Gordon. And I think those 3 players need to be traded. And I think contending teams would love to trade for them. And contending teams would pay way more for Vooch than they would for someone like Drum Daddy. And that is
totally.
Vooch is that guy who can do everything. His passing is amazing. Amazing. Great, great reads, great passing, shooter, everything that you want from a 5 in today's NBA, Vooch provides from you. So yeah, what do you think about the Magic?
I completely just agree with everything you said about the Magic. Vooch is so good that in the situation that their team is in, trade him. You would get so much value.
He has so
Vucevic.
much value right now.
Any team would just
cream.
They would salivate at the thought of trading for Vucevic. The Celtics would just give you so much. And there's a note on the Celtics that I want to get to later for another player that makes me just know they would give up. The Celtics would give up probably multiple firsts for Vucevic with where their team is at right now. Sure.
He's worth that much, man.
And one big mistake that I think that some teams that sort of hover in just this shitty range of the NBA that they're never really very good make is that they get 1 or 2 good assets and they just hold on to them. They hold on to them. They don't they don't sell when they're at their peak value. Like when we first came up and with discussing this topic this week, we started talking about Vucevic over the phone.
Yeah.
And like a thing that I believe we ended our conversation on is that you said that the Magic need to appease fans at the same time that they're trying to rebuild. But I think that even holding Vooch, you're not really appeasing fans, because you're, even with Vooch, who has incredibly high value on the open market right now, you're still second last in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I know. I guess this is a topic for general NBA teams and general sports teams in general, is when to pull the plug and when to look at that rebuild button and just fucking press it and just blow up your team. And it is a difficult conversation because at one time, like you can't really just get rid of everyone and have no team and just lose every single game. You can't.
Yeah.
Because like it's not a good look for your team and your franchise and your front office. I don't even think the NBA would really let you, like, intentionally losing obviously is illegal. Or it's against NBA guidelines or rules or whatever. But like there comes a point where your fans need to be okay with just being bad for 3 years and just rebuilding. And I think the Magic are just in this perpetual state of being bad anyways, or just making the playoffs and then getting slaughtered in the first round, where it's like, get rid of your assets. Like these guys are so valuable and you can get so much for them right now. You're not going to make the playoffs. There's so many stacked teams in the NBA. You're not beating the Nets. You're not beating the Sixers. You're not beating
anyone.
You're not beating anyone, right?
Yeah.
Like blow your team up. There's no point to keep these guys. And like, I understand that you want to sell tickets and jerseys and shit, but like, there just does come a point.
Yeah. And in regards to like your comment on fans have to be okay with being bad for 3 years, to quote Jake, one of the most exciting things in sports is potential. And there's definitely, there's an argument to be made that personally, like, remove my Raptors fandom out of it. If I was a fan of the Orlando Magic, I would be more excited to watch Magic games if they were just a young rebuilding team than to watch 100%. Them just be a constant, just like bad to mediocre at best team with like Vucevic and Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. It's like if you just look at bad teams, like the Browns. I know this obviously is, or the Hornets, bro. I'll even use an NBA example. Like the Hornets were poo, but they had this big like Kemba Walker contract, and it seems like, oh, getting rid of Kemba Walker, like that's, he sells tickets, he's exciting, like he's the face of the franchise, right? Like
way better off now.
They're so much better off, and I guarantee you every Hornets fan in the world is so happy about their team, because even though them and the Magic, they are better than the Magic, but like they're comparable. Like the Magic and the Hornets in a series, it would be a good series. But I guarantee you every single Magic fan in the world would be much happier if they just swapped teams, because the Hornets have all this young potential, but they're still not that great. They're good. Kind of like the Magic.
They're
better than the Magic for sure.
Yeah, they would beat the Magic in a playoff series.
They would.
Like the Hornets are actually pretty good.
They are pretty good. I guess what I'm saying is like, if your team is all right, but you just have a bright future, it's okay. That's what I'm saying, right? But if your team is all right, also like the Magic, but your future is like, what is my future? Being perpetually just decent, it's not worth it.
So one thing that I think with Vucevic that I just thought of now, it's not in my notes or anything, just to play devil's advocate for the exact same point that we were just trying to make. But it's like,
okay.
the Hornets kind of showed with drafting LaMelo Ball that all it takes to like really kickstart the rebuild is to hit once. You hit that one draft pick that works out great, and your team trajectory goes from this to just up in an instant.
Unless you're the Timberwolves.
Unless you're the Timberwolves, but that's sort of a unique situation where like
a
lot of their picks didn't work out how like I'm talking like they work out like LaMelo Ball, where it's like they instantly are probably the best player on your team and just like the catalyst of your franchise going forward. And I guess Cat would be that, but the Timberwolves are just
an exception. I know.
They're dysfunctional on so many other levels that it's a different thing.
Yeah.
But the Magic have a very good chance in a deep draft class this year of getting an extremely high pick with how bad they are. If they retain Vucevic past the trade deadline, which I still think that my position on it is still that they should trade him for just draft assets even this year. But in a scenario where they decide they want to keep Vucevic as their current franchise player, and they get that high pick this year, and they hit on that pick, and it works out next year, they're getting Cole Anthony back. They're getting Markelle Fultz back. They're getting Jonathan Isaac back. Yeah. And if that one more pick hits, your team is pretty decent, and there's no harm in keeping Vucevic in that scenario, because then he's actually a valuable like asset for where your team's at. But
I think what the Magic need to do is to shop every single one of their players, single one of their
see what you can get,
valuable players. Exactly. See what you can get. If you're getting offers like multiple, like if you're getting like two first round picks or something like this year, and like a decent player to replace, you might want to take that offer. And Aaron Gordon, on the other hand, I think like you shop Aaron Gordon, you shop Fournier. Vooch is different. But like, I think you hear offers for everyone, and you don't like, you treat these players like assets. I know that sounds bad, but like, for example, OKC, bro, they had Paul George and they get rid of Paul George. They had Westbrook and they get rid of Westbrook, and their team is doo-doo right now. But they have a young shot, Jay Gilgeous-Alexander, who has so much potential, and they have Pukashevsky or whatever, and then they have all the picks in the world, and they're going to be fantastic in a couple of years.
Like I would rather have like second year SGA than Paul George at just leading my team, because even Paul George is better right now, but Paul George is not going to win you a championship.
No, unless he's also with SGA, Kawhi.
Yeah, unless he's also with Kawhi. But like Paul George and Westbrook are like you have a very good competitive team with those two guys, but are they going to be good enough to actually win a championship? Because as soon as you hit that level where you're competitive, you make the conference finals once and your fans are happy. But if you don't exceed that next year, they're back to just being disappointed. So
yeah, and I think that's like what every team struggles with, man. It's like just literally just like what you were saying. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but yeah, that's just
having a guy like SGA is almost more exciting for fans because you don't know what the ceiling is.
Yeah, exactly.
You're entering a new uncharted waters where you can be extremely successful. Whereas with guys who are established that are good, but you're still not winning and it's not working out, like what's really the point then?
Yeah, man, I think building through the draft and it is really the way to go, unless you're getting a player like, I don't know, LeBron or something that just, wins.
Yeah.
Then it's different, but yeah.
Another player that's kind of in the same sort of realm that we were just talking about, that's available for that should be available on the trade market, even more so than Vooch this year, is Jerimai Grant.
Yes.
He is on an extremely team-friendly deal, and he is having by far the best season of his career. He's probably a most improved player candidate, along with guys like Jaylen Brown. And a team that I've heard is extremely interested in him, like very, very interested, is the Celtics. There's reports that have come out that the Celtics have offered multiple first-round picks for Jerimai Grant because they're in a scenario where they need the wing scoring and they need the defense and they want to win now.
Yeah,
but the Pistons,
such a steal, bro. Just to cut in quickly, he is just the steal of the year. Like they gave him a 3-year, $60 million deal, and it seemed a little excessive maybe at the time because he had never really proven anything. But that is the steal, the biggest steal. Like it's crazy. That's it. That's all I got to say. Just had to cut in there.
This is gonna sound like kind of like a shitty take, but like I think I think there's more guys than you think that if you just take them and you put them on the garbage Pistons with nobody, that they're going to put up more than 20 points per game. Just by essence of the NBA being extremely skilled. And so, someone needs to have the ball in their hands. And like, who's it going to be on the Pistons other than like Jerimai Grant, right? Like,
that is true. But I think that most players can't do that. Like, and I think that's the difference. It's like Grant on the Celtics wouldn't be averaging 24 points a game.
Yeah, because he's the like fourth option.
Exactly.
Fifth option.
But it's those times where like the ball is passed to him and he's asked to score, or like what he can do. Like essentially, if he's putting up 24 points on the Pistons, you know he can put up 24 points. So if he's putting up 14 points on the Celtics, let's say, or 20 points or 18 points, he's putting up those 18 points efficiently, and he's helping everyone score because he's that other player that needs to be guarded.
And that's
right.
And that's where his actual value in the broader sense context of the league comes from, is that you put him on a contending team and he gives you like great scoring outside of your like primary options. But the reason that I think it's, just to finish my thought from before, the Celtics have offered multiple first-round picks, and the Pistons are like, no, we are not trading Jerimai Grant. So Jerimai Grant is not going to be traded this season. And I think that is just unbelievably foolish for the Pistons to do.
The Pistons should also pull the plug, essentially.
The Pistons are close to like the Pistons have like a young team with young assets, but again, like they're so uncompetitive, and you're in a situation with Jerimai Grant where, like you were saying before, his value in the league is that he's going to add that scoring, the secondary scoring and defense to a contending team.
Yeah.
But the Pistons have him in a scenario right now where he is being valued as a primary scorer.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that there are a lot of guys that if you put them on the Pistons, they would put up similar numbers as the primary scorer.
For sure.
But I don't think that Jerimai Grant's value should be a primary scorer.
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you're saying. It totally makes sense. I guess it just depends where the Pistons value him and like what their plan is for the future. You know, like, cause I think he is still really relatively young. I don't know his age, but I would guess like he's in his mid 20s or
25 maybe.
Yeah, 24, 25, 26, something like that. So he hasn't even hit his prime yet. And if he's averaging these like 24 points a game and they see something from him, like for example, what we saw in Siakam, we as in, we're Raptors fans, he is maybe a guy that you want to just pay and hold on to and become your franchise guy. And I know that him as a franchise guy right now definitely couldn't like make a deep push into the playoffs. But yeah, I guess it just depends what you want to do. But no, I see what you're saying. Like if the Celtics are willing to give up an arm and a leg, take an arm.
Yeah, take the arm and the leg.
Yeah.
Take the arm and the leg because like I don't know. Like maybe I'm just like sleeping on Jerimai Grant a little bit, but I think that I'm just repeating myself at this point that you put a lot of guys in that situation, they're going to put up big numbers. And when you have the opportunity to sell them like a guy that is a primary scoring option on an NBA team, you just take it. You take it. You don't even think about it.
Fantasy. It's like what happens in fantasy. Like when one guy that is like not that good, you're just like, okay, I got to sell this guy high.
Yeah, because like honestly, like Jerimai Grant, when teams are offering multiple firsts for him, he's being valued based on his counting stats.
Yes.
He is. So it's like it's the exact same thing as fantasy.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. And no, I know it is the exact same thing as fantasy. Yeah, I know. You may be right. It just depends what the Pistons want, I guess.
Yeah. The Pistons don't have a great track record of being right.
Yeah, true. They gotta hire Club.
Yeah, hire me.
You want to bust out? This episode's getting decently long, so maybe we should just bust out a couple quick ones and then finish it off. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. Bust out a couple quick ones. Mr. Olidipo, maybe.
Oh yeah. So I'll start it off real quick with the Rockets. Rockets, another team, pull the fucking plug. PJ Tucker, get him out of there. He has value. Contending teams want him. Yeah, power forward, that is a perfect situation. So many teams want power forward. So many contending teams. Get him the fuck out of there. Oladipo. Yeah, go ahead.
Note on PJ Tucker too.
Yeah.
He's a skill set that is just so valuable for a contending team
valuable.
as well. Like just that like
stretch defender.
Yeah. Just that he's just that classic just stretch 3-and-D veteran wing. Like a team like the Lakers would be such a perfect fit for PJ Tucker.
Dude,
it would be awesome
perfect.
to watch.
Perfect. It's so same with the Heat as well.
Yeah.
The Heat he would love. Same with like honestly any team. He could add so much to any team. But yeah,
speaking of the Heat.
Yeah.
Victor Oladipo.
Yes. Okay, I was just gonna say that.
My situation with Victor Oladipo, I 100% think that the Rockets need to trade him because he's gone after this season. But that being said, in terms of teams that are not the Rockets approaching trading for Victor Oladipo, I think that if you're not a team like, if you're not like one of those classic big market LA, New York, Miami teams, red flag, stay away.
From Oladipo.
Stay away from Oladipo. Stay miles away from Oladipo, because I think that if you give up assets for Oladipo and you're not one of those teams, he is leaving you this offseason. You're
I know what you mean.
Like if you're like, I don't know, like what an exact example would be, like if you're like theoretically
Phoenix
or like Milwaukee, and you think that you're going to re-sign Victor Oladipo next year, you're kidding yourself. He's a drama queen. He wants to go be
Victor
like.
Oladipo's given a bad rep recently.
Yeah, well, it's like he should be given a bad rep. He's not acting not acting like a professional. He's acting like he has an opportunity to go get paid in Indiana. They offered him a big long contract, which is what he's saying that he wants, because it's not in one of his like perfect locations. He wants to be a drama queen and just like
he wants to sing. He wants to have a beautiful music career in Miami. He wants to or Los Angeles.
He wants to force his way out and just like act like he's just like I don't like Victor Oladipo. Like I don't like him. I used to like him, but I just don't think that he's acted like a professional with this whole trade debacle that's been going on with him. And if you're not Miami, New York, or LA, he will not re-sign with you if you trade for him.
Yeah, I think Oladipo needs to go from the Rockets once again. Like, get something for him. Don't just let him walk in free agency.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Rockets blow it up, but keep Christian Wood because he's young and he's good.
Yeah. Honestly, they should keep. If they can trade John Wall, then trade him. But trading. We were just talking before we started recording how John Wall's making like the most money in the NBA. He's making like $41 million or
more
something this year. Yeah, he's making more than LeBron. So like,
and Kawhi.
John Wall kind of just needs to be Houston's like tank commander this year because nobody's going to trade for him.
I like
and he's like, and he's still a pretty good player. So
maybe he'll buy everyone on the team like Rolexes and shit, like he did for the Wizards. Yeah, it brings value to the team, bro.
Yeah, and also just because there's no chance that anyone's going to take John Wall at $40 million a year. Just nobody can feasibly afford it. So just like that's a situation where you just keep him and just give your fans something to just like enjoy.
Your tank commander, man. I like that. That's
tank
funny.
Commander.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple more players. John Collins is another player we need to mention. He is a young stud who is on a team currently that is either not using him effectively. Well, I don't personally. I'm a John Collins owner in fantasy. He is not being used effectively. And Capella right now is providing them what they need more than John Collins. Like the Hawks in their brain, the Hawks are like really high on Capella, which makes sense because he's a fantastic rim protector and he's a fantastic like scorer and he's athletic and all this shit. But like John Collins is kind of just, I don't know. Whatever. The Timberwolves are gonna fucking give up an arm and a leg and another arm and another leg. Maybe their head and their ball sack too.
The Timberwolves are like, the Timberwolves are just so into John Collins. Like they're apparently just prepared to offer the
Timberwolves are so funny.
Offer so much for him. I'm just laughing because it's like after the Oladipo thing, it's just like our personal biases are so are so clearly starting to make their way into this video.
I know. It's hard not to, man. It's
Yeah.
really hard not to. What do you think about John Collins though? Or the Hawks? What do they do? Like the Hawks are not as good as I thought they were this year.
Keep John Collins, I think. Don't.
I agree.
Don't trade John Collins.
Trae Young and John Collins. That is the future of the Hawks. It is. Those are your two young guys. John Collins has so much value, but don't just give up. Why would you give up the value? I don't know. The Hawks can't. I don't think the Hawks can do anything to be good in the playoffs this year. There's nothing they can do.
They just need to just trust the process.
They need to trust the process. Agreed.
There's a certain point where and this goes back to the Timberwolves are just classic for doing this. That they draft a young guy and just I'm going to use John Collins as the parallel here.
Yeah.
They draft a young guy and they don't work out immediately within the first couple of years, and then they just trade them for someone who's just super enticing, like the Timberwolves would be trying to do with John Collins. They would probably try to trade Jarrett Culver and a pick for Collins.
They would just trade they would trade all of their depth, all of their more veteran quality depth, as well as all of their future picks.
And they would still suck. And then
they'd have Anthony Edwards, Cat, and John Collins, and then no one else. That would just be their and a bunch of G League players, and that would just be their entire team.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There comes a certain point where you need to be patient with the talent that you picked. You need to trust your scouts that told you John Collins is going to be a good future contributor to this team. You don't just give up on him immediately. And if it's a continued trend where you feel the need you're trading away your young players when it comes time to pay them, you need to hire new scouts to get better guys in your organization. If you don't,
I guess
if you clearly don't trust what they're telling you.
Yeah, and the only thing with John Collins is what if he walks? You know what I'm saying? If John Collins is expecting a max, which I don't even think it's John Collins' fault for that he's regressed so much this year. I don't think anyone really thinks it's his fault. It's just the organization. They added so much more talent, and they just aren't using it effectively. But he's going to be wanting a max, or at least close to a max. And I don't know. Maybe there's some inside information where the Hawks are John Collins is going to walk no matter what we offer him. So we need to get something out of him, because I think his contract ends this year as well.
Yeah, I didn't know his contract ends this year.
It's either at the end of this year, or at the end of next year or something. But yeah, if he's not happy where he is, maybe it's beneficial to trade him to get something.
Yeah,
I'll look it up.
And that's just information that we just don't have access to. Because I've heard rumors that he's not happy in Atlanta. But the last thing that I wanted to say about John Collins is that when you're on a young team that's hoping to be not necessarily competitive this year, but competitive in the future, part of John Collins as a professional just needs to be okay with taking a little bit more of a back seat and not being a star player, because as your team just adds more talent around you, you're just not going to be able to take 20 shots a game. That's just a reality. There needs to be a pecking order, and you can still be high up on that pecking order, but you need to give a little bit for the sake of the team. And that's one thing that I don't know how John Collins feels living or playing for Atlanta. I don't know John Collins personally. So, but
I know him. He doesn't like it that much.
Yeah, he doesn't like it. But if the rumors are true and that's kind of a reason that he doesn't want to be in Atlanta, you won't be on a competitive team anywhere then if you feel like that, because you need to be able to give a little bit.
Yeah, I know. The Hawks need to figure out their pecking order. They brought in so much talent, and they just don't know. Yeah. They really don't know. And they have guys coming back too, Hunter or maybe Herter and Cam Reddish and all this shit. They have such a talented team of young guys as well, but they just need to figure out their pecking order. And I think they need to trade people to figure out who gets placed in their starting lineup and who has what responsibility and all this shit. We've talked about pecking order on so many episodes, but it is so important. And John Collins' contract, by the way, it ends next year. So this year on a contract. Next year he's making only 5 million, like 6 million a year. So he's so fucking cheap. And then in like by the end of next year, he'll be a free agent. Like next season.
Just when you mentioned Cam Reddish, just one last thing that I wanted to touch on is that it's another funny Wolves thing. I've heard trade rumors that the Wolves are interested in Cam Reddish, and their proposed package is Jarrett Culver and a second round pick for Cam Reddish. And I find that funny that the Wolves are already trying to do that. Because it shows just like how incompetent they are as an organization. That like
how old is Culver?
Culver and Reddish were picked in the same draft. In the same draft. Culver was picked with the 6th overall pick, and Reddish was picked with the 10th overall pick. So the Wolves are basically trading the guy that they picked like
second round pick
2 years ago at 6 for the guy that was picked at 10 and giving up the second round pick. If that rumor's true, which is just like classic Timberwolves thing to try to do.
I feel bad for Timberwolves fans. I'm happy Anthony Edwards looks good.
Yeah,
he's an exciting player, and D'Angelo Russell's coming back. Like,
because on my fantasy team I owned Cat and D'Angelo Russell for like I traded Cat right away, but I owned D'Angelo Russell for like quite a bit of the year.
Yeah.
I was like, I've been kind of like following like Timberwolves Reddit pretty regularly, and they're just depressed poor souls. Like
the Timberwolves are the funniest team in the league.
Yeah, they're like, and then the only bright spot they had of their team was Edwards and Malik Beasley, and then Beasley got suspended for like assault rifle and like drug possession. Yeah, he's like a full-on criminal. But anyways,
oh my God.
so slightly off topic to end the video here, but I think
wait, one more player.
One more? You got one more?
Lowry.
That's right.
Yes. Okay, so Lowry, in my opinion, is not going to be traded.
I agree.
And I don't think the Raptors should trade him.
Yeah.
That's kind of all I got to say.
That's basically the extent of my Lowry take. I think a lot of the Lowry trade rumors, they came from a place that the trade market this year is absent of like actual star players that are going to be up for grabs.
Mm-hmm.
And Lowry was sort of just an enticing name to throw out there just because the Raptors had such a terrible start to the season and I can understand from an outside perspective that's not like just delusional Raptors fans that they would think that Lowry would be traded, but
we are delusional Raptors fans.
I just don't see it happening. Like I think that
I don't see it happening either.
That recent contract we gave Lowry, the like 30 million plus contract, was sort of our team saying like, Kyle, you are going to have to take a pay cut for the sake of the team in the future, but as an appreciation, here is just a boatload of money
right now. Yeah, and I think Lowry is the kind of guy that would. I don't think he's the kind of guy that would take a major pay cut, but I think he's the kind of guy that would move from like 30 to like 25 or.
Yeah, and like if we can get Lowry in the low 20s, like that's fine.
That is fine.
It might be a little
more years.
It might be a little bit of an overpay in like the later years of his contract, but the salary cap will go up. And Lowry provides just a lot of intangibles with his leadership and just like
he does
his defense, and he's kind of just like.
I love that he said he wanted to retire after, because I know he's not a calming, just like he means that.
He's a calming, just like anchor of the franchise.
He is,
and that's worth something that doesn't show up in the box score. And because of that, I don't think Kyle Lowry will be traded.
Me neither. And he's so thick too. And I just love seeing him on the floor. Just gotta say that as well. Throw it out there. I'm being sus right now, but man, whoa, he's got a dump truck.
Well, are there any more players that you want to talk about, or are we good to wrap her up here?
Well, I think there are more players that we could talk about, but I think that we touched on the main. I think Whiteside should be traded, and I think Rubio should be traded.
Yeah,
those are just.
I haven't heard any rumors about those guys.
I haven't heard any rumors either, but it's so fucking stupid that the Kings would sign Whiteside and then never play him. Also bias. I drafted Whiteside in fantasy, but which was dumb. But yeah, I think I'm good. You're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Let's wrap it up.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for watching us ramble about potential NBA trade rumors and fit in our little personal biases with
This is a
fantasy
fun video
into
to
it.
make, man.
Yeah,
This is a fun video.
It was a fun video to make. But thanks for watching, and let us know in the comments any guys that you think could be on the move this offseason, and maybe any guys that you'd want to see your teams trade for as well. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.
Adios.